Hello and welcome to Sports Opinion, the weekly sports talk show on Channel 18. That's public access TV. My name is Dirk Keller. This is Bob Boyd.
Hi, Dirk.
Over there's Bud Sueppel. Next to him is Earl Murphy, and we are here with very special guest, Marvin Riley, the longtime athletic director at Iowa City West High School, and soon to be former athletic director after 22 years at West High. Marv, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Last week on the job.
Last week, last few days.
Wow.
Saturday will roll around here quicker than you think.
Well,
it's going to be a hot one going out.
it sounds like it. Do you have air conditioning out there?
Yeah.
In your tenure, did you get a national award?
Oh, several.
Several years ago, I was fortunate enough to be named National Athletic Director of the Year. So for high school, so that was quite an honor. Yes.
Yes, it was.
That's
Sure
a big
is.
deal.
Oh.
That's a big deal. And, we can't not talk about what's happened this year at West High. An unprecedented 6 state titles for boys and girls sports at Iowa City West High. You got boys and girls basketball, girls volleyball, boys tennis, boys track, and girls,
Boys soccer.
then boys soccer.
Boy, soccer, that was tough.
And the season's not over.
Right. We've still got
Yeah.
2 highly ranked teams in the boys baseball and girls softball. The girls, didn't they win a doubleheader last night?
Girls had a doubleheader sweep
Yep.
with Cedar Falls last night. The boys play Waterloo West tonight. So hoping for the same.
Well, the girls are ranked at number 8, which is way too high, I think. They should be ranked higher, I should say. If my numbers are right, they're 28 and 4.
Yeah, we were ranked number 2 a week ago,
Yeah.
and right after that happened, we dropped a game. We split with senior. We dropped a game in a tournament, and went down to 4 losses.
Yeah.
But if you look at the 5As, we have 5As now in softball,
Right.
and the top 2 ranked teams have 3 losses: Ankeny and Muscatine. We have 4 losses, but again, some of it's who you lose to, when you lose to them, and so
Yeah.
on. But when we get to tournaments, I think 5A is about as wide open as any class is. Anybody can beat anybody. Once you get down there and you're in the final 8, I think anybody can beat anybody on any day. And pitching, as you know, is a lot in softball. So all the teams that are going to be there are going to have a good pitcher, and we have a couple of them. So hopefully the girls will make it. They've never been to Fort Dodge, to the state tournament. So they've come so close in the regional finals for a few years, and their goal was set. There's 8 seniors on that team, actually 7 seniors, I should say, but their mind is made up. They want to get there, so hopefully they'll achieve that goal.
Well, this senior class and this group, this 4-year group of student athletes this year has accomplished so much. And I don't think the girls' softball team is any exception. Who's their coach?
Jeff Kelly's the coach. Before coming to Iowa City West, Jeff had been the longtime coach at Indian Hills Community College, junior college, and they had a very, very successful program.
That's a Tumwa.
Yes, and he got out of it for a year, missed it, but the new person they hired didn't want him to come back because he liked the job. So as it worked out, we had the opportunity to hire Jeff, and we had a teaching opening at the time. So he's been here now, I believe this is his 5th year. But he's a veteran coach, had a lot of experience, and the kids that are coming through there now. We had our senior night last night, and those kids have been playing together since the 8U, 9U years when they played.
That's
ASA.
8 years old.
That's
Wow.
ASA softball, the Jaguars program, and they enjoy it. They have fun doing it, and hopefully they can go out with a big bang. This senior class.
I've coached a few of those girls' softball players coming up in your system. It's a heck of a program.
Yeah, there's some good kids there, and some of those girls. I'll take Shelley Stump for example. She played volleyball, she played basketball, she's playing softball. Tatum Klein's our first baseman, and she played
We know that name.
basketball. She's the 3-pointer in the state tournament. Brianna Sturtz is another multi-sport, basketball and softball. So, and we've got several girls like that. So that's part of the reason that's a successful class. Those kids do more than one thing.
And
They're all athletes.
And
They're
that,
athletes,
And that
yes.
Klein girl, when she made that 3-pointer, that was a beautiful shot.
It was. It's
One for the ages.
Yeah.
It really was. Thought it was going to bring rain with it. But,
Yeah.
It was
She
a
played a
rainbow.
whale of a final
It was a
game.
beautiful shot.
my daughter's a sophomore. Well, she'll be a junior at West, and I've never seen her so excited for her sports team.
Yeah.
She's not an athlete anymore, but she sure enjoyed the football season, the basketball season for boys and girls. And I think I speak for all of us when we say it was just a treat to watch both the boys and girls basketball teams this year.
Oh, they had a super year, and it was kind of neat because before they even started the season, they kind of got together and they come up with this slogan, Trojan Nation, we are one. And basically, the we are one bit was the boys and girls basketball teams together as, one. Not girls basketball over here and boys basketball over here.
One basketball family.
They were kind of together, exactly like that. And their T-shirts were made like that, and so it was kind of neat that when the girls did get the opportunity to come through and the boys followed suit, that they both came out of the season with state championships. And the unique thing was we gave them state championship T-shirts. They were both on the T-shirt. We took a picture with both teams together. That one of the big giant photos that we put up in the gym, and so they're together as one. That
Forever.
that was their slogan. So,
And they'll never forget that experience.
Oh, for sure.
Of what they, not just what they accomplished, but what they did together. What a neat shared experience.
But when you talk about those 6 titles so far, I mean, what has been the closest? I remember, maybe help me here, Marvin, was a year 99, 2000, right in there, when the boys won football, basketball, and soccer, right?
99, yeah, that would have been, actually,
Nate
we relate to
Nate
Nate
Kading,
Kading. That
senior
was his year. We won, as you say, football, boys basketball, soccer, and I believe it was girls track. I'd have to look and see. We did have
think it was.
We had
Okay.
4 state championships.
4 that year.
Yeah, and then in the 05, 06 school year, we had 5. So that was the most that we'd had in any particular year. And then, and I didn't know that until we started this year and the kids got on a roll. And after boys track, that comes up, now let's see, that's our 4th one. Has anyone ever won more? Has there ever been a year? I said, well, I don't know. Well, then after we won the boys tennis title, that got kind of serious, and everybody wanted to know, how many have we won? So I go back and pulled out our programs and looked at our list of state championships, and I found out that we tied it, but really didn't say anything until that Saturday when boys soccer came through and won the 6th state title. And when we had our little get-together with boys tennis team and boys soccer together, I just mentioned, well, you're part of history because boys tennis tied the record, boys soccer broke it, and beyond that, I don't know. I just know that that's the West High record, and I don't know what the record is statewide.
It's the record.
That's what I was going to ask.
6 is the record.
Is the record,
Yep.
okay.
Well,
Wow.
that's something that I didn't know.
Yeah,
but
I looked it up before I put some things together for the show, and that's the record. I would assume you held the record at 5 championships before that, maybe tied with somebody, but
Yeah,
who
That's
knows?
unbelievable.
Yeah, that
Well,
is
yeah.
unprecedented.
yeah, it's been a good year. I mean, the seniors have had a great year, but there's some very, very good supporting juniors that are part of that as well.
yeah.
Sure,
But the seniors really provided some great leadership in all of those state titles. With one exception, our boys tennis team is really young. They're predominantly had 1 junior and the rest were sophomores and freshmen. So
Wow.
those kids, are what you call year-round tennis players.
And who's your
Yeah.
tennis coach for the boys?
Mitch Gross has been there.
Yeah.
He's been there I think 11 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Veteran coach for
Does he
us.
coach girls too?
No, he does not coach
Okay.
girls. Mitch has been in the boys program ever since, well, actually a year or 2 before he got into the teaching position at West, and he teaches social studies and is also a council member for Coralville.
Coralville, yeah.
So you see him on the news once in a while in that
Yeah.
aspect as well. But
Where does he have time to do all that?
No kidding, yeah.
That's pretty impressive commitment to the community.
Well, you have good kids like that too, and he does. He's got a great group of boys that are tennis players that are easy to work with and very coachable. And
Year round, you say that they play tennis?
a lot of these kids will play the year round. You have your spring season, but they'll play the summer tennis tournament route. You know, they'll have the
Yeah.
what they call the Midlands and the Missouri Valley and the different things like that. They'll play in that, and a lot of them will get into a fall league, or they'll be taking lessons from a particular coach, you know, throughout the winter months. And so when spring actually comes around, you know, Mitch does a lot of conditioning stuff with them, but you can't officially start until the state tells you can start. So, you know, they're
Yeah.
really in pretty good shape, and they've got good tennis savvy, court savvy.
Have they won a state title before?
Yeah, tennis. This would be the fourth one for the boys. The very first title we
amazing.
won, I say we, I'm talking West High,
Yeah.
since I've been here, was in 1995, and that was boys tennis. We had a coach by the name of Aaron Mercier, who was our art teacher at West High. And I'm thinking back, I'm thinking like Ben Seelig might have been part of that team.
Yeah.
I can't think of the others right now, but they won it in '95. Was the very first one since I was at West, and then Mitch Gross has had two others prior to this one, so that's the fourth one, 3 for Mitch and 1 for Aaron, and so the boys tennis program has been pretty solid.
And the soccer program.
Oh, boy.
Holy cow. It's just become a dominant force.
Yeah.
Well, boys soccer is just, like you say, that's really become dominant. And the first state title there was in 2000, which was, as you know, Nate Kading's last year. And all the hubbub about that when we got a red card, one of our players, in the first 10 minutes of the game, so we played a player short the whole game and came down to the very last penalty kick, and guess who was there? You know, golden toe. I remember Nate putting that in, and that happened to be his third state championship because he had the football, basketball, and soccer. But that was the very first one we won. And most people don't know this, but the head coach that year was Matt Wilkerson. He was only here for 1 year. Then he went back to the University of Kentucky. But the assistant coach was Brad Stiles. So in
Smiles by
2001,
Dr. Stiles.
Yeah.
we hired Dr. Stiles, or Brad Stiles, and he's been there ever since. And I believe this was his 13th year.
Wow.
And the boys have been to the state soccer tournament 13 consecutive years. So he's been a part of all 6 boys state championship soccer teams. And he's coached 13 in a row there.
13 in a row.
It's
Think of
phenomenal.
that.
It's phenomenal.
That is.
And this town does produce. We talked on our last show about how fortunate we are here in Iowa City, in the area, to have such dominant softball and baseball programs at the high school level and below. Well, look at what soccer has done,
Take any sport. Yeah.
but especially at West High. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
You know, the club soccer programs here in Iowa City are very, very good, and they benefit, you know, if you looked at the state tournament this year, City High, West High, Regina, Solon, Clear Creek. I might be leaving someone out, but everybody in this area, and a lot of those kids that play year-round soccer are involved with the soccer clubs here. You know, so those individuals need to
Regina's
get a little
got a
credit.
doctor too.
You know,
For a coach?
Dr.
Dr.
LaRue.
LaRue. Yeah.
Actually, Brad Stiles is not a doctor, but
Oh, okay.
anyway. But Dr. LaRue is, and he is the coach at Regina. But I think those club programs have a lot to do with
Oh, yeah.
success.
And
just like
they
you
have
said.
2 seasons now. They do the fall and the spring.
They do?
Well,
Yes.
it's not sanctioned, though. It's not a sanctioned sport.
Oh, okay.
Initially, when it started, there was a
Yeah.
fall soccer season, but they did away with that because as the popularity of soccer came about.
Took away from football.
Well, it did that, plus there were more teams involved, so they could play it in the spring, and that's where it stayed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But there was a time when we had a fall soccer
Yeah, okay.
championship. Mostly the smaller schools, and some of the schools that did not have a football program.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Now, the baseball program continues to roll on. The boys' baseball team has a record right now of roughly, I don't know if I've got this right, they're ranked number 7 and have a record of around 22-7. It was hard for me last night to find updated records for the boys, but
Yeah, that's accurate.
is that right?
Yeah, 22-7. They had a nice doublehead win at senior on Monday.
Yeah.
And with one tonight, because I know the last seeding game, the top first 30 go into the seeding for sub-states, and I know the first game tonight is a seeding game, so
Okay.
it counts. But they're 22-7. Charlie Stump, he's been here 20 years. You know, again, this is the
20 years.
veteran coach, you know, that you have that's been with the program.
It's kind of a legend in boys baseball throughout the state.
He is, you know, he got, I can't remember the number, 500, I think it was last summer, 500 wins, and 5 or 6, I think it was 500. But, you know, he's taken our program to another level. You know, we've been to the state tournament, I think, the last 3 years, been state runners-up 2 of those 3 years. It does a great job. A lot of that, as you mentioned earlier, with the Little League programs, kind of like our club programs, ASA softball, you know, the Trojan Club program that got started over there several years ago is, you know, feeding kids into the program and really created a lot of interest. We had a Trojan night the other night where we invited those kids to come out. And I believe they said there's like 180-some kids in Trojan Club baseball.
Wow.
Is that right?
Well, you know, and that's like we talked about 8U, 9U, 10U.
8 years old, and
Yeah,
how
up to 14.
does it go to 14? Okay.
I think 14U, I believe, is the upper
Didn't-
level.
Didn't you do something to the football field, to get a new fielders?
We didn't get a new football
Okay.
field. We did finish up a new soccer field.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
That was it. Yeah.
That was it.
That's located right south
Next,
of our baseball field.
But you couldn't use it this year. You have to wait till next, right?
Right, right.
That's
It's,
it, that's it.
I was walking out on it the
Yeah.
other night after the baseball, or during the baseball game, in between innings, and it's really starting to get established and coming along quite well. And if we'd have played on it this spring, I think we would never get it in the shape that
Sure.
we want. So, you know, it's got a couple more good growing months, or actually 3 or 4 probably, because it grows up into September. If that gets firmly established, that's going to be a beautiful playing surface.
Now, who was responsible for helping you raise the money and build that soccer field?
Well, it's basically our parent group. Soccer parents initially started you know, the big push. Peggy Hausler and Jackie Kading started out as the co-chairs of the fundraising committee, and then Jackie moved to North Carolina. She's in the process of getting married.
Getting married,
Yeah, yeah.
Peggy took over, and Peggy Hausler just did a fantastic job, you know, getting the committees together and raising the money. And then former principal Ed Barker chipped in with a pretty healthy donation
Yeah,
and got everybody
That's
you know,
nice.
over the hump. And so it was a very, very worthwhile project, and Peggy deserves all kinds of credit because she was the real leader of that big push. So.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, you also, in your tenure of the last 22 years, have a new football field. It's not so new to us now, but
How old is it? Yeah.
Well, we played our first football game on there. It would have been the fall of 1993. It had been 93-94 school year.
Wow.
90, 91, 92, before we always played at Bates Field.
yeah,
Yeah.
And,
hard for younger people to imagine that, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they wouldn't even believe it, but I remember backing up the car, loading up the trunk, taking everything over there, set up for gates and concessions, and, you know, and really our crowd over there was not very good because the people in the area, especially the,
Yeah.
you know, younger kids, people that didn't have license, et cetera, they really didn't have an opportunity to get across town. And once we, again, that was a parent fundraiser. You know, we got the people behind it. Tom Leppick was the big instigator of that, and he kind of took the lead, and we raised the money to get the bleachers and the lights. And the year or two before, we built that press box there, and Harry Ostrander helped us get that thing going. He and I think it was Catherine Lane and John Rothman. So we had another parent group there that got that built, and we thought, well,
Yeah.
it's a nice looking press box, but we don't have a field. So I think it was Reese's first or second year when Reese Morgan came in as our coach. I think
Oh, yeah.
Tom Leppick came forward and said, you know, I think we can have a football field here, so then kids can walk to the game, parents can walk to the game, you know. great idea. So we took off on that. And the first game we played was the '93 season, because I remember that quite well. We played Linmar. Some of you may remember Greg Purnell, the success
Oh,
he
yeah.
had at Linmar and their state championships, and we played them, and he was impressed by, the big ceremony we had and the crowd we had, but he wouldn't let us beat him that night.
Yeah.
So the first game we had there, we lost,
How much?
and I don't remember. It was 2 or 3 touchdowns, I
Well,
think.
that's
and
not
then,
bad.
And then we finally won our first game, and we still have the ball in the trophy case. We beat a Cedar Falls team there.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because, let's see, '93, '94 year, I think we were 3-6. And then in '94, we were 6-3, made the playoffs, and drew City High the first round. City High had a great team then, and almost pulled the upset. We dropped a pass in the end zone late in the game that
I can't remember
would
that.
have been the upset. And then '95 was the year that we won
Yep.
the first football state championship. So
Amazing turnaround.
Yeah, that
It's-
Reese was coaching then.
Reese was
Oh, yeah.
coaching then,
He's a great guy.
and Reese was a great coach, had a great staff
He was with you through '98. Is that correct?
through it's 2000.
2000,
Katings
right.
last
He
year.
left in the spring
That's
of
right.
2000.
That's right.
We still don't like Kirk for that.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
No.
But, I think a lot of it, as you mentioned with the field, though, that had a lot to do with it, the fact that now we're playing on our own campus.
Yeah.
Kids could walk out the back door and go to the game, and the community around.
Really quick.
Yeah, it happened really quick.
Really
Yeah.
quick turnaround, but wow, that's for sure. But, at that point, as I remember, you could probably give us numbers, but when Reese got involved, he got a lot more athletes out for football, didn't he?
We started getting more athletes, yeah. I mean, he really beat the bushes recruiting.
Yeah.
His staff beat the bushes, walked down the hall,
Yeah.
encouraged kids. I mean, and our enrollment was starting to grow
Yeah.
at that time, too.
What was enrollment when you? Now you came to West High, and it was at '87.
90.
In
Actually,
90.
22
Oh,
years
yeah,
ago.
sure,
Yes.
22.
July 1st.
I never was good at math.
Yeah.
So what was enrollment in 1990?
Well, the first year here, I think our enrollment was about 950.
Oh, my.
So you can see in 22 years, we've grown from 950 to almost 1,900.
Yeah.
Doubled.
Doubled
Yeah.
in size. So with that, of course, you had more numbers, more teachers, more coaches. As they say, cream rises to the top, I guess, too. But we just had an opportunity to
What does
have things take off.
What does another high school do to your enrollment?
Well, a lot would depend on how they would draw the boundary lines. So, I'm not sure if, they would just say, okay, everybody in North Liberty, we're going to go to the third high school, and maybe the north part of the Coralville attendance area would go there. I'm not sure how they would divide it up. Right now, you look between City High and West High, I think we have approximately 3,300 kids in the district at the high school level, something like that. So if you were to divide evenly, you're going to have 3 high schools of 1,100. Well, that's not going to be the case. I mean,
Yeah.
everything I'm hearing, if there is a new high school, it's going to be in the vicinity of 800 students. So, even if you take 800 students all out of West High, then you've got a high school of 1,100 or thereabouts. City High is still at 1,400 or 1,450 where they're at.
Would that also take kids out of Clear Creek as well?
Well, Clear Creek, they're a different district, but
Oh.
there may be some people up there that would opt out of Clear Creek to go to a third
Right.
high school in North
Yeah.
Liberty
Because
too.
North Liberty, they got a junior high there. Or,
They've got an elementary school there, Clear Creek does.
in North Liberty,
Right, right. And it's weird how North
I know.
Liberty
It
is set up. It's like a line down the middle, and on
Yeah.
the east side is the Iowa City district.
965 or something.
It's not even
It's,
965.
like
It's
Jones
Jones.
Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
Jones Boulevard,
And you
right.
got a school on one side and,
I didn't know
two
that.
schools on the other.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, I had to deliver something out there. I said, well, there can't be a school in North Liberty.
Oh, there's
From
3 of
Clear
them.
Creek, and there was. No, I mean from Clear
Clear
Creek.
Creek.
Oh, yeah.
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 Interesting.
So,
Yes,
who was
it is.
who was the principal at West High when you were hired in 1990?
Dr. Argenbright, Terry
He was
Argenbright,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
So he's been there that whole time that you've been there,
plus a few.
and a few more. Tell us a little bit about Jerry.
Well, Jerry's been, he's been there, I think, like 28 years, if I'm not mistaken. So he was there a few years before I
Yeah.
was. He's a good leader, and he's watched all this growth as well. And, he's bought into the things that we wanted to do athletically, and the fact that he had a couple of daughters that were involved in athletics, that helped a little bit as well. He had a daughter, Jill, that ended up going to UNI as a Hall of Fame volleyball player through the Girls Athletic Union, and also a good trackster, and his other daughter was a good tennis player. So he got involved with the athletic realm and bought into the things we were trying to do, and has been very supportive of what we've been doing at West High. So I have nothing but positives to say about the support we've received from him.
Well, he's probably going to miss you quite a bit.
He probably will a little bit, but like I told everybody, you'll adjust after a while. But I said we've had a lot of rides together to state tournaments, whether it be
Sure.
Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Muscatine, wherever we go. So we spend a lot of time together in the car conversing. But I said, if you really need somebody to ride with you, I'll still ride along in the future.
I can't get over that view of West High from the Melrose Avenue.
Oh,
It's just beautiful.
It is.
it's a very nice campus out front, and the trees. On the 22 years that I've been there, some of those trees have really grown. And
Yeah.
it does make a very nice setting. You drive by there and you look, and some people don't realize that it's a high school.
That's what I
Oh, I was
say.
just going to tell you, when I have family coming into town, they think it's part of the university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do. They see everything over on the
Yeah.
left or to the north. It's an impressive-looking campus, and
It's very nice. And
I think it's safe to say you've left.
Can I ask a question? You got 1,900. Are you overcrowded now?
we're just about to the max point, really. We're actually putting up a couple of temporaries this summer to accommodate the little overload that we're going to have in the fall.
Okay.
You could probably comfortably put 1,400 or 1,500 students in there, and it'd be very spacious. But we've learned to get along, and if they rub elbows in the hall
Sure.
during class time, they rub elbows. And with the ninth grade center or ninth grade wing that was built on there, that helps.
That did help
with
a lot.
students too.
Oh.
They say they had a small article in the paper today about Morgan. Is he going to be a senior at West High or a?
Yeah, he'll be
Yeah.
a senior.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It was sort of confusing.
Yeah. Jeremy's currently, he's a
Yeah.
junior, going to be a senior.
Yeah,
but-
that's right.
And
Got an offer from Iowa State.
Yeah.
he's got several. I think
Yes.
he got
UNI?
Iowa State. UNI has been after him for a long time. Rice. There's somebody else too.
Creighton and Drake, I think.
Drake was in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he's got some tough decisions to
Well, his dad
sort
too.
out.
Yeah, I wish Iowa had room for him. It's going to be a tough. There just aren't scholarships left.
Yeah.
It's such a large class. Depends if everybody sticks around, but you never know.
That can change. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
There's been a lot of glory this year. 6 state titles, just some unprecedented accomplishments. But among all the glory, too, there's been quite a bit of sadness. Even before school started, you lost Caroline Found. I think everyone that watches this show has heard an awful lot about her and her mother. It wasn't just their family that suffered with this. It was the West High family, too. And I think above all of it, it's been pretty clear that her dad, Caroline's dad, was a real leader in helping, I think, everybody get through this. He was just so strong in the face of such sadness. Can you talk a little bit about how her death impacted the student body and how her dad helped bring everybody back together?
Well, yeah. You really don't know how kids are going to react when something like this happens, and I really didn't know. Jerry didn't know. I mean, none of us really knew how much of an impact Caroline had on the entire student body. I mean, it's amazing. And as we proceeded through the year, we found out how much she meant to everybody. I mean, as Brez, volleyball coach, said, first off, she said, you know, you don't get coaching manuals like this in college to tell you how to handle these things. And basically, she did a super job working with her girls and all the girls that were so close to Caroline, because she knew Caroline very well. But anyway, Caroline was probably, you know, in my opinion, the most popular person in our high school. And to have something like that happen, you have to understand she's had to touch a lot of lives. And she had certain slogans, she had little things that she did that were a little funny once in a while. And sometimes she'd maybe stray off to the close to playing the edge. But,
Like any teenager.
you know, she'd always come back and do the right thing. And, you know, so the impact she had on everybody was just unbelievable. You know, before I get to the Ernie part too, I'll just tell you, I think it was about the second day of volleyball practice, because practice started earlier.
Right.
We'd had 2 or 3 days of that, or it might have been their camp. And I walked in the gym, and of course Caroline comes over right away, and she always gives me the old fist bump. That was kind of her little thing. And says, "How you doing today?" I says, "Great." I said, "How about you?" She says, "Great." I said, "How are we going to be?" She says, "Don't tell anybody, but we'll be better than we were last year." And I'll never forget her saying that. And and then just a few days later, we had that horrible accident. And, but anyway, you know, her teammates just kind of build off of that once they got over
Did
the
they
grieving
ever?
process, and things worked out well. But
Well, you know, and it wasn't just her death, but then her mother Ellen dies
Yeah.
2 weeks later from cancer. And I mean, not many people on this earth have had to go through what Dr. Ernie Found went through this past school year.
yeah, and Ernie was a rock, as much as he could be, and he was, you know, he was a rock for the girls on the volleyball team. Because they all loved him. They'd all been out to their place. I mean, the family, Ellen and Caroline and Ernie and Catherine and Greg, it's just a family that has touched so many lives on the west side, in the west side community, but also the Iowa City community. It's just unbelievable. And Ernie, like I say, he was a rock. He was, you know, grieving for both his daughter and his wife. But when he walked in the gym or he walked in the school and the girls saw him, I mean, they were all over there, hi Ernie, hugging him, and he was hugging back. And, you know, as he said, you know, I needed them as much as they needed me.
Just going to say, I bet those girls and the coaching staff really lifted him.
What a great
Yeah.
was she?
Pardon?
She would have been a senior.
She was a senior this year. She would have graduated this spring.
Yeah.
But I give Ernie credit for, you know, I don't know how you can handle that, you know, losing 2 people that close in such a short period of time. One somewhat expectedly, but the other very unexpectedly. And then, you know, being a rock like that, he's quite a man.
He's given back a lot to this community just through how he handled his own personal tragedy. But those girls on that team and the coaches, they really responded to him. From everyone I've talked to, he was a difference maker. And to see them fulfill that goal and that prediction of Caroline's, that we're going to be better than last year. And they won the state tournament before.
Right.
They did that without her, and arguably the best player on the team.
And I told Coach Brez the next day after Caroline had told me that. And she says, well, I can believe that. And then a day or 2 later, of course, we were all mourning. But anyway, something else with Ernie, we had our senior night last night, softball. And Caroline was a softball player, not quite at the level as volleyball, but she was an important part of the team. She played outfield sometimes, she'd pinch run, pinch hit sometimes. And so we had the 7 seniors last night, and then Ernie and Catherine came as well. And then they announced, you know, Ernie and Catherine, and they presented him with a couple of softballs signed by the kids, autographed balls. And, you know, of course, we had our group hug in the middle again with, you know, all the girls, because, you know, Caroline was just as close to the softball girls, which some of them were volleyball girls, as she was anybody else. I mean, you could have Joe Blow walk in out of the hallway, and Caroline would be the first one to say, "Hey, how are you doing? Da da da. Can I do anything for you?" And
Yeah.
Where did she get that spirit? Was it something her mother had? Ernie, her siblings don't. I mean, I've read that her siblings weren't that outgoing.
not quite that outgoing. You know, she was the young one of the family for one thing. Alan was very outgoing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure a lot of those same traits Caroline had as well.
Yeah.
So.
That's not something many teenagers have, is that ability to communicate with adults, to speak comfortably with adults and inspire like she did.
Right.
And it wasn't just the softball team or the volleyball team that she inspired while she was living. I mean, the basketball team, the boys and girls basketball team. I took my son to one of the first boys games of the year, and it was at home, or one of the first home games. There were so many away games to start the year for the boys. And
You sound like Bergman.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he and I go way back, so there's a reason.
You can add-
But we get to the game, and they're playing. You're playing Jefferson, Cedar Rapids Jeff, and I'm confused. I take the boy, and we sit right behind the West High bench. I mean, right, like first row, and everybody's got blue on. All the boys, West High boys players have blue on.
Yeah.
I thought, what's going on? Well, that was Caroline Found's favorite color, and something that I guess all the sports programs adopted.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
The boys had the blue T-shirts with the number 9 on.
Yeah.
The girls basketball had the blue warm-ups. I think with the LLL on them. You know, football helmets had LLL on them.
Live like line,
Live like
Caroline.
Did you do anything differently at your graduation?
Actually, a little bit differently. Ernie did accept a diploma and said a few words after our other speakers were done, and that was tough. He gave a very good speech, very good speech, as you would expect,
Yeah.
knowing Ernie. But getting back to your blue T-shirts and boys basketball, it's kind of funny. We were playing, I think maybe it was Davenport West in the sub-state. One of those teams anyway, and the coach, I was talking to their coach briefly, and he says, you know, my players are looking out there and everybody's number 9. He said, you're getting them confused. And I said, well, the reason we have that is because that was Caroline's number. Oh. And then he remembered. But I thought it was kind of funny because they all noticed we were playing, everybody's got the number 9. So,
Well, I think it's safe to say that no one person has ever had the impact on a school year like Caroline Found. And out of that great sadness and tragedy, a lot of good things came. I think we talked about how it bonded the volleyball team, and I think by association, the other teams like softball and both the boys and girls basketball teams.
Dirk, I'm glad we
The whole West community.
because we talked about this found. I didn't know half of what was going on,
Yeah,
and then not many people watching this show.
yeah, and that's why we wanted to have Marv on, because not only because he's retiring after 22 years, but there's just been so much that's been accomplished on the west side of town, and it needs to be recognized. 6 state championships in 1 year with the real possibility of 2 more it's just exciting as can be. And
Do you get paid for that? They extend your.
Big bonus ones, eh, Mark?
big bonuses.
It comes on the last check.
you know, we've had Marv here talking about just this last year and a little bit about the past, but what we haven't talked about is where Marv started in Eagle Grove, Iowa. Marv was a wrestler, and a real doggone good wrestler. And you went to UNI. Now, I'm going to just back up a second. You had a pretty influential coach at Eagle Grove, and I thought I might ask you to talk a little bit about him. His name was Dave Hardy.
That's correct. Dave Hardy was my coach at Eagle Grove. Very influential. You know, he taught me a lot, not just about wrestling, but he taught me a lot about life. When I had the opportunity after I graduated, went to UNI. Chuck Patton was the coach there. Dave and Chuck were very instrumental in getting me into school and getting the scholarships that I had, etc. And when I graduated from UNI, that's when Dave was leaving Eagle Grove, or thought he was leaving Eagle Grove, going to Boone to the Iowa High School Athletic Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's assistant executive secretary to Bernie Sagoff.
Right.
And I had interviewed at New Hampton and interviewed at another place, and Dave said, don't get in a hurry because I may not be here. And this job will be open. So I didn't take anything, and then he let me know when he did get the job at Boone. So I went back, interviewed, and went back home to Eagle Grove as the head coach. But I give Dave all kinds of credit for giving me that opportunity, but also teaching me more than wrestling. And he was a great mentor to me as a coach when I was at Eagle Grove, when he was in the role of assistant executive secretary at Boone, helped me with various things. He always, if I asked him about so-and-so, should we hire him or should we hire her, if he knew them, he would, fill me in with that information. Just a great mentor as well as a great high school coach.
Guys, Marv was at Eagle Grove as head coach for 20 years. He had a 129 win, 62 loss, and 5-tie record. 5 ties as the head coach. You swept the Class 2A traditional and dual titles in 1987. But it wasn't enough to be coaching wrestling. He has been officiating wrestling for the last 42 years and is a member of the IHSAA Officials Hall of Fame. And just earlier this year, I want to mention that he was also inducted into the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Hall of Famer.
Big time. Big
Getting
time.
old.
Well, so
He hasn't done much, has
Did
he?
you coach your son in high school?
Yeah, I did. Mark wrestled for me. He graduated from high school in '87.
two-time state
He's
champ.
two-time state champ,
Yeah.
3-time finalist. And '87 actually was my last year as head coach. I actually only was head coach for 17 years.
Ah, okay.
Because when he graduated, of course, I was AD then at that time as well as
Yeah.
teaching and coaching. And when he came down to Iowa, I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to come and watch him when he was wrestling and not shortchange our kids there at Eagle Grove, because we had tournaments on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Good
want
for
to
you.
leave anybody else in that position. So, I stepped out of that and was an assistant. I actually coached the junior high kids then, and the junior high assistant came up, and my assistant took the head. So when I was a junior high coach, this is kind of a sidebar, but I had the opportunity to coach Jesse Whitmer, who was another national champ, came down here.
He lives right here in Iowa City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had a conversation about him at lunch earlier today.
But he came down here then too, and ended up his 5th year winning the national title for
Yeah.
Gable as well. But
Was he a
yeah,
118-pounder at Iowa?
Yep, he ended up being 118.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
God it wasn't 125.
No kidding.
He'd have been small, but
He was just a rail. I remember him.
But I had the opportunity to coach both he and Mark at Eagle Grove, and we had a lot of other good kids. A couple went to Iowa State, one to Nebraska, and just, coaching was fun.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. Wrestling was my big thing as far as coaching, but when I got to the point where if I couldn't give it 100%, then, I wanted to have somebody else do it. And I did not want to miss, Mark's college career. I was fortunate in high school to coach him, so
What was
you're always there.
His record in college.
Mark, I can tell you, he was a national champ and a 2-time All-American. Record-wise, I don't have that. No.
Oh, you can't tell me.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I had it.
National champion.
A national champ, that puts him in elite status right there. 2-time All-American, that's pretty special.
Well, I remember, getting off on that just a little bit. As a freshman, he redshirted. And then as a redshirt freshman, he ended up placing 4th in the Nationals. He drew the national champ, he drew the first round and wrestled all the way back and won like 6 or 7 matches and ended up getting 4th. And then his sophomore year was the year he broke his jaw. Would have been like in January, because I was still in Eagle Grove, and I remember sitting down at the dinner table and phone rings, and John Streif, I believe, is the one who called and said, "There's some bad news." I thought, oh goodness. So he broke his jaw, so basically he lost his sophomore year.
Is that in practice?
Yep, in practice.
Who did it?
Right before the Penn State meet. Young man that graduated from Iowa City High. I can't think of his name. Good kid. But he just happened to fall wrong, and his knee fell on his jaw or whatever.
Ooh.
And so his year was done, and the next year he wasn't sure if he was going to wrestle or not, just because of, I don't know if you call it stage fright or whatever. And
Yeah.
finally got going, and as things worked out, he won it as a junior, and then did not place as a senior, but had a good career and really enjoyed wrestling, and consequently started coaching for me at West as a assistant. Business kind of got in the way, so he got out a year and missed it so much, so he went to Solon for 2 years, and then luckily I got him hired back at West, and he's been there ever since.
He's been a head coach for 12 years now at West High?
12 or 13, I believe.
Yeah.
He's got I don't know if this
could be
record is
12.
accurate,
it's-
247 wins and 30 losses.
Yeah, he's had a very good dual meet record.
Yeah.
That's
I-
putting it mildly.
And I tell him, I say, you can't compare your record to my record, because back then we maybe had 10 meets a year.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
now you have 40 meets a year, so.
Yeah.
But we go back and forth a little bit.
What's it like for a dad, let alone a wrestling coach dad, to have Dan Gable recruiting your son to come to Iowa?
Oh, it was, I enjoyed it, and I've known Dan for a long time, even back in,
Yeah.
and when I was in high school, we wrestled Waterloo West, and Gable and I were in the same class. I never wrestled him. I always tell him, I went up and you went down, or I went down and you went up. to
Yeah.
avoid me, but he wouldn't buy that. But, anyway, it was kind of fun. I remember the night that Mark made the commitment. And back in those days, the recruiting guidelines weren't quite as stringent as they are now.
Yeah.
But Dan and Barry Davis and Mark Johnson, those guys all were staying in our house that night. Put them in beds in the basement and upstairs.
Isn't that something?
Then overnight, Mark made his decision, and then we got in the van and drove down to Webster City to Bart Chelsvig's, and had to convince Bart that he was coming down here too.
You did a good job of that.
That was, but Mark and Bart were really good friends, and Dan wanted to get both of them, and
Yeah.
so that worked out well.
Where is Bart Chelsvig now? I know he's coaching somewhere.
Well, he was at Wisconsin
That's
as an
okay.
assistant,
That's
but he's
right.
kind of got he's not there anymore at the university, but he's got kind of like a youth wrestling program or something of that nature where he does still work with kids and so on.
Where's Johnson?
Mark Johnson went to Illinois.
Yeah, he just retired.
Retired, 2 years ago, I believe.
I used to know him quite well.
I used to push brooms with him at the old field house when I was in school, and he was a
He was a
graduate.
nice
He was great.
person.
Tuna? You never called him Tuna?
No, no. We worked with a lot of wrestlers like Chris Campbell, who wouldn't even speak to us, but Mark was a really nice guy. Big smile all the time.
Great guy,
Yeah.
great family. We got to know them really well. And Mark, I remember when Mark was here, he really hated to see Mark Johnson leave
Oh, yeah.
and go to a different job.
Especially Illinois.
Yeah.
So,
I was really surprised when Mark Johnson retired. I mean, he's
I was
basically
too.
my age.
but I think maybe the rigors of recruiting might have had something to do with that.
Yeah.
His wife was the nicest person.
Very nice.
Oh,
Linda was awesome.
she was tremendous.
And the two girls that he had, were great kids. I remember my Mark used to babysit for them once in
right?
a while. When he was here, he'd go over there a couple times. The
I'll be
girls
darned.
loved to have him over there.
Well, we were talking about Dan Gable, and I just got to thinking, Marv here's already won 6 titles this year with a real chance of 2 more. That kind of makes you the Dan Gable of Iowa high school athletic directors.
I don't know about that. But my coaches, I think, have won the title.
Well, somebody,
You had to hire the
named
right
director
coaches.
is there for a reason.
Are you going to sell cars?
No, I don't think I can sell cars. I don't think I can do that.
What are you going to do, Marv, in retirement? Do you have any immediate plans? or-
I really do not have any immediate plans
Yeah.
right now.
What a great feeling that must be.
Well, yes and no. It's probably
Yeah.
a little scary too, but I know
Can you go back to refereeing?
I'm going to continue to officiate.
Good,
Good,
I'm
good,
still doing
good.
that.
Yeah.
And I may, before I came down here, Eagle Grove, we had a crew. We did football every Friday night for 17 years, and I may try to get back into that. I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
And I used to do baseball and softball. So if
Lord knows we need good officials, and that's not a crack. There just aren't enough people willing. We've had Bob Saunders on here before, and there's not enough people willing to do it.
They can't get the
there
young
aren't.
people to commit in time, yeah.
No, it's hard to get them to commit, and
Yeah.
sometimes you do get them to commit, and then it's a bad experience, whether it be
Yeah.
a coach, a kid, or a parent, or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they say, well, I'm not sure I want to do this. I've got better things to do, which is really too bad.
Sure is.
But, our officiating population is getting older
Yeah.
every year, naturally, but we need to replace them with some good young kids. And so I try to, whenever I can, encourage somebody, hey, try this, make a few bucks, and, maybe you'll like it. But anyway, getting back to my July experience here, when I'm done, I'm going to see if I can't just pull my ears in a little bit and relax. And I know I've got a fishing trip planned with my brother-in-law and the group at the end of July in Canada.
Gonna go north.
Yeah.
And somebody said, what are you going to do? I said, well, first off, I've never been retired, so I don't know. Secondly, when I'm up there in Canada looking at the trees and the water and the wildlife, maybe I'll figure it out then. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's real good. That sounds real good, too. You'll stay in Iowa City, we trust?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, good.
We're not planning to go anywhere. I'm not to the point where I want to go south for 3 or 4 months or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
It doesn't appeal to me. Now, Bud does that every winter, but
well, and it might eventually. But there's so much going on. If I continue to officiate wrestling, Mark continues to coach. Of course, his mother likes to watch that too. And
Sure.
Oh, sure.
So we'll be here and stay involved with different things. So.
well, looking back on your 22 years at West High, what are some of the moments that really stand out to you? I know it's a tough question,
Well,
but I don't
It
want it
is
to
a-
sound like I'm asking who's your favorite child.
yeah.
But there are moments.
I can answer that one.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. One.
There really were a lot of great moments. People ask about also the different state championships, which was better, et cetera.
Yeah.
To me, they're all good. Like I said earlier, the first one we ever had since I was here was the 95 tennis, but then that fall of 95, when we got the first football one, that was really pretty special because I know how much work went into that from not only our coaches, but the community in general, building the facility and all the time that coaches and kids put in. So, that was a pretty special moment, I think. One when my son won his first state championship, watching him as a head coach do that, me being the athletic director, that was special just because, I knew what it felt like when I was fortunate enough to be coaching and wanted him to experience that. And, that's what I tell all my coaches anyway is, if you can experience that one time, just to have that feeling, I think that's an awesome feeling because there are so many that, coach for their entire lifetime and never even get close to it.
So many
right.
really good coaches.
Really good coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
One of the closest to us, of course, was last fall in volleyball, and to watch what everybody went through there with the volleyball situation in Caroline and the school, and losing Ramon Bryant.
We wanted to
shortly
talk
after
about
that.
Ramon Bryant, and I'm glad you brought him up.
Well, and he is Richie's younger brother.
Right.
Ramon was a freshman at West, and
Yeah.
that fire took his life shortly after Caroline found
Just a
lost her
couple
life.
weeks.
Yeah.
And Richie and Caroline were really good friends, so Richie's getting a double dose of all that too. But all that stuff right there combined, and then to see how our team reacted, our coaches reacted, our school reacted, brought tears to my eyes up there at that state volleyball championship. So something like that is really special, just because you understand everything that is behind
I
the
think
scenes.
it did throughout the state.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think everybody was rooting for him.
it's
Oh, yeah.
and it's nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brez, and if you don't know Brez, Kathy Bresnahan's our volleyball coach. She's coached there 20 years. Took a little hiatus and came back, thankfully. But she's been in touch with ESPN numerous times. They're going to do a story. The story's been in ESPN magazine, ESPN High School magazine.
That's good.
Just because of everything that surrounded that. But that would be another special moment. and like I say, it's hard for me to say the most special.
Well, those girls had to dig pretty deep in that final match, didn't they? They got down.
They were, yep,
They were
on the brink.
behind, and it was looking
Yeah.
a little bleak there
Yeah, it
for
was.
a while. Yeah.
Being down 2-0 in volleyball, that's really tough.
Yeah.
And then part of it was the first 2 games were so close.
Yeah.
And they lost them, and then all of a sudden they caught fire and actually won pretty handily in 3 and 4. And then the next one was number 5 was close, and you don't know what's going through their heads all the time. And
Yeah.
the fact they were playing City, which is their crosstown rival, I probably entered into it. But the thing about that is, those girls and those 2 teams are such great friends.
Yeah.
They play together in club volleyball.
Yeah.
The City girls knew Caroline as well as the West High girls, and it was just amazing to see the competition there. So, that was definitely a special moment. But a lot of special moments. Watching some of our facilities come to fruition, because I know how much work, time, energy, money parents put into these. Watching our football stadium become a reality, watching our soccer field become a reality, or our baseball lights and dugouts, which parents that could help us made that a really neat facility, as it's softball. So, you can go on and on about a lot of different things. So,
Well, the impact is going to go on and on of these new facilities, and I'm just sitting here listening to you talk about them, and there are going to be generations after you who will benefit from the hard work and effort that you put into organizing these different fields, these different facilities. I'm just trying to figure out which one are they going to name after you?
none, I hope.
Well, you must be leaving, though, Marv, with a great feeling of accomplishment. With all these things that have happened in your tenure. And I know you're modest and you won't take hardly any credit for any of this, but you had to be the leader that helped impact and put all this together with great parents and kids. But it's pretty darn impressive what's been accomplished in the last 22 years.
To say the least.
Yeah, definitely is.
Well, and
You've done a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. And I do have a good feeling about everything that has happened. Well, most
Yeah.
everything. You have
Sure.
some bumps in the road, but
Sure.
I just, when I took the job, I didn't know what all was going to be entailed with the job, and I knew it was going to be tough. But things started rolling. We got good people and good support from the administration and the parents, etc. And as you say, when I leave, I have a good feeling. I think I'm leaving at the right time for me and my wife and family, etc. So can just look back on it and see nothing, hopefully, but good memories.
Oh, yeah.
And like I told everybody, I'm not out of your hair. I'm going to be back here watching anyway. I'm just not going to be helping you set up, take tickets, and do that kind of stuff. But
I can remember all the sectionals and district tournaments you had in that gym. That's how good of a gym the state won't go
Yeah.
unless you have the facilities.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
we host a lot of regional, sub-states,
done? Okay.
districts, and
And comfortable. There was always room for
Oh,
everyone.
yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point. Well, I hate to say this, guys, but we're out of time. We've been visiting with Marv Riley, the longtime athletic director at Iowa City West High School, who is retiring this week after 22 years as a Trojan leader. And to say you're going out on top is an understatement, but even yet, there's room to grow. 2 more state title opportunities with boys baseball and girls softball. And Marv, I just want to say it's been an honor to have you here today. And thank you for everything you've done for our children and for our community. And best of luck to you. And we hope to see you around real soon once your time at West High is over.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate stopping down and shooting the breeze. a
You're
little
very
bit.
welcome. Would like to have you back again sometime.
Well, I'll probably have more free time now, so
Yeah.
if you have an opening and you're really desperate,
Enjoy that retirement, Marv.
Yeah.
well, maybe I can bring back a big one here when I come back in July. And
Yeah.
There you go.
Wouldn't that be great? I would just 2 of them.
Yeah, that big
2 of 'em.
fish.
Oh, the fish.
Yeah,
I'm
Marv
sorry.
and John Campbell on.
I thought you were talking about trophies. Trophies for the boys and girls.
I guess so.
We're going to have to wrap it up, but on behalf of Bob Boyd and Bud Sueppel, Earl Murphy, and myself, we thank Marv Riley very much for being here today on Sports Opinion. You can watch us every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on Channel 18, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on Channel 18. On behalf of the guys, thanks again for watching. Oh, you can also tune in at PATV.tv and see this show at any time. But on behalf of the guys, thanks very much. Remember this, either you're a Trojan or you're not. Go Trojans, win state.